Welcome to the channel. On this video, we take everyday things you've seen breakfast cereal aisle. It's a wall of boxes that all look like breakfast, but they're built for very different moods and routines. Some cereals are simple grains toasted until crisp, some are coated for sweetness, and some are mixed with clusters, fruit, or marshmallows to change texture and flavor. As we go, the goal is to recognize what each kind is made of, what makes it different in the bowl, and what it's usually trying to offer, whether that's crunch, convenience, or a more filling start. Corn flakes. Thin, toasted flakes made from milled corn, they're one of the oldest modern cereals and help define what breakfast cereal even means. Corn is cooked, rolled, and baked until crisp, then boxed to stay dry and crunchy. They took off in the early 1900s when packaged foods were becoming common and people wanted a quick breakfast that didn't require a stove. Cornflakes taste mild and straightforward, which is why they're often the base for honey, fruit, or banana slices. They also show how cereal became a shelf-stable food, low moisture, sealed packaging, and consistent texture from batch to batch. For many families, they're the default plain cereal, and that simplicity is exactly the point. Frosted flakes. These are cornflakes with a sugar coating that melts slightly in milk and turns glossy as it dries. The idea grew out of mid-century cereal marketing that leaned into sweet flavors and kid appeal, while still being easy to pour and eat. The coating changes everything. It adds a crisp snap at first, then softens into a sweet, lightly syrupy milk that people often enjoy as much as the flakes. Frosted flakes matter because they sit at the line between breakfast and treat, and they show how a small change in processing, adding a glaze, can create a completely different experience without changing the base grain. Rice Crisp cereal. Made from rice that's cooked, dried, and toasted into tiny pieces, this cereal is known for its light crunch and the little popping sounds it can make in milk. Rice-based cereals became popular as an alternative to heavier wheat cereals, and their neutral flavor made them flexible for both breakfast and recipes. The small, airy pieces soften quickly, which is why some people eat it fast while it's still crisp. It also became a classic ingredient for no-bake dessert bars, showing how cereal isn't only breakfast food. In the aisle, Rice Crisp cereal is the go-to for a clean taste, gentle texture, and a base that plays well with fruit or a spoonful of sugar. Oat rings. These are small ring-shaped pieces made from oat flour, usually extruded and toasted for a steady crunch. Oats have a long history as a breakfast grain, and turning them into a shelf-stable ring cereal made them easier to eat quickly, especially for kids. Compared with corn or rice cereals, oat rings tend to taste warmer and slightly nutty, with a denser bite that holds up longer in milk. They matter because they're often positioned as a simple, everyday cereal, and many versions are fortified with vitamins and minerals. Oat rings also show how cereal makers balance texture and nutrition messaging without making the bowl feel like health food. Fruit-flavored rings. Brightly colored ring cereals are usually made from a mix of grains and flavored to suggest citrus, berry, and other fruit notes, even though the taste comes mainly from natural and artificial flavorings. These cereals grew out of the idea that breakfast could be playful, with shapes and colors that stand out on the shelf. The rings are designed to stay crunchy and to perfume the milk with a sweet, fruity aroma. They matter because they're a lesson in food design. Color, scent, and shape do as much work as the ingredients. For many people, fruit-flavored rings are pure nostalgia, tied to childhood breakfasts and Saturday morning routines. Cocoa cereal. Chocolate-flavored cereals come in many shapes: balls, shells, or small rectangles, but the common thread is cocoa powder blended into the base and sometimes a sweet coating on top. They became a staple as cereal companies leaned into dessert-like flavors while keeping the convenience of a cold breakfast. Cocoa cereal usually turns the milk chocolatey, which is part of the appeal and part of the product's design. Texture matters here. The pieces are often engineered to stay crisp long enough to finish a bowl, even as the cocoa flavor dissolves into the milk. Cocoa cereal matters because it shows how cereal can be an experience, not just food. Crunch first, then flavored milk at the end. Cinnamon squares. Cinnamon-flavored square cereals are typically made from wheat or a mixed grain base, then coated with cinnamon and sugar. The flavor profile is familiar, closer to toast with cinnamon than to candy, which gives it wide appeal. Historically, cinnamon has been a prized spice in baking, and this cereal borrows that comforting bakery aroma to make a cold bowl feel warm. The small square shape is practical, it's sturdy in the box, easy to spoon, and coated evenly. Cinnamon squares matter because they sit in the middle of the aisle, sweet, but not as overtly fruity or chocolatey, so they often become the compromise cereal that both kids and adults will eat. Peanut butter cereal. These cereals use peanut flour, peanut butter flavoring, or a mix of both to create a roasted, nutty taste that's richer than most sweet cereals. Peanut butter has been a common American pantry staple for generations, so turning it into cereal was a natural move for brands looking for familiar comfort flavors. The pieces are often puffed or shaped to hold coating, and the flavor tends to linger, giving the bowl a more filling feel. It matters because it's one of the few mainstream cereals that leans into savory roasted notes instead of pure sugar. For people who want something sweet but not fruity, peanut butter cereal offers a deeper, toastier profile. Honey nut cereal. Usually built on an oat-based piece, this cereal blends honey flavor with a light nut aroma, often from almond or mixed nut flavoring rather than chunks of nuts. Honey has been used as a sweetener long before refined sugar was common, and cereal brands use that association to signal a softer, more natural kind of sweetness. The coating is typically thinner than frosting, so it tastes sweet without feeling candy-like. Honey nut cereal matters because it's a classic example of how cereals are positioned. It feels wholesome, smells inviting, and stays versatile for everyday breakfasts. It's also a common gateway from plain oat cereals to sweeter options. Granola. Granola is a baked mix of oats, sweeteners like honey or syrup, oil, and add-ins such as nuts, seeds, and dried fruit. It has roots in early health food movements, where toasted grains were promoted as hearty alternatives to more processed breakfasts. The baking step is what makes it different. It forms clusters and creates a roasted flavor that feels more like a snack than a cereal. Granola matters because it can be eaten with milk, sprinkled on yogurt, or eaten by the handful, so it blurs the line between breakfast and trail mix. In the aisle, it's the cereal that emphasizes crunch, richness, and customization. Muesli. Unlike granola, muesli is usually not baked. It's a loose blend of rolled oats, dried fruit, nuts, and seeds that originated in Switzerland as a simple, nourishing breakfast. Because it isn't toasted with oil and sweetener, it tastes more natural and grain-forward, and it can be eaten soaked, mixed with yogurt, or prepared overnight. Muesli matters because it offers a different rhythm. It's slower, softer, and less sugary by default, even when fruit adds sweetness. It also shows how international breakfast habits show up on supermarket shelves, giving people an option that feels closer to a homemade bowl of oats than a manufactured crunch. Shredded wheat biscuits. These cereals are made from whole wheat that's cooked, then shredded into fine strands and compressed into biscuits or pillows. Shredded wheat became popular as a straightforward, minimally sweet cereal that highlights the grain itself. The texture is distinctive, dry and crisp at first, then it absorbs milk and becomes tender in layers. Because it's often lightly sweetened or not sweetened at all, it pairs well with fruit, honey, or even a spoonful of jam. Shredded wheat matters because it represents the plain whole grain end of the aisle, where the cereal is meant to be a base, not a fully finished dessert in a bowl. Bran flakes. Bran cereals focus on the outer layer of wheat, which is naturally high in fiber and has a slightly earthy, toasty taste. Bran flakes became well known as cereal makers began fortifying products and marketing them for digestive regularity and everyday wellness. The flakes are usually bigger and more fragile than corn flakes, so they can crumble easily, and they soften quickly in milk. Bran flakes matter because they serve a specific role for many shoppers, a reliable, familiar way to add fiber without changing the rest of breakfast too much. They also highlight how cereal boxes often sell a function like fiber as much as a flavor. High-fiber twig cereal. These are the small, crunchy sticks or twigs that look more rustic and taste more assertively wheaty than most cereals. They're typically made with wheat bran and other whole grains, sometimes with minimal added sugar. The texture is intentionally firm, designed to stay crunchy in milk longer than many flakes. This style matters because it's one of the clearest examples of cereal made for a purpose. People choose it because they want a strong fiber boost and a filling bowl. It also shows how the cereal aisle includes products that don't try to be sweet or fun, but instead aim for a simple, practical daily routine. Sweetened clusters. Cluster cereals use baked or bonded pieces, often oat-based, that clump together with syrup or sugar into crunchy nuggets. The appeal is texture. Clusters give you bigger bites, more crunch, and a more snack-like feel than loose flakes. Many versions add dried fruit, nuts, or chocolate pieces, but the defining feature is the clumping process that creates that grab-a-spoonful bite. Sweetened clusters matter because they bridge classic cereal and granola, offering a balanced middle ground, less loose and oily than granola, but richer and more varied than plain flakes. They're often chosen for their staying power in milk and their dessert-like crunch. Marshmallow cereal. These cereals mix toasted pieces, often oat shapes, with dehydrated marshmallow bits that soften and puff slightly in milk. Dehydrated marshmallows became popular through shelf-stable dessert and drink mixes, and cereal brands adopted them to create a playful contrast of textures. The toasted base gives structure, while the marshmallows dissolve into sweet, vanilla-like pockets. It matters because it's one of the most clearly special occasions cereals, sold as a treat as much as a breakfast. Marshmallow cereal also shows how cereal makers use mix-ins to create variety without changing the core cereal piece, keeping manufacturing consistent while making the bowl feel more exciting. Protein cereal. Protein-focused cereals are designed around higher protein numbers, often using ingredients like soy protein, pea protein, whey, or nut flours blended into the base. This category grew as more shoppers started reading nutrition labels and looking for breakfasts that feel filling for longer. The taste and texture can be different from classic cereals, often denser, less sweet, and sometimes more roasted or cereal bar-like. Protein cereal matters because it reflects how the cereal aisle adapts to changing habits, especially for people who want something quick but closer to a workout-friendly breakfast. It's still a pour-and-eat product, just built around a different priority than pure crunch or sweetness. Ancient grain cereal. These cereals use grains like quinoa, millet, sorghum, or amaranth, either alone or blended with corn, rice, or oats. Ancient grains became a popular label as shoppers looked for variety beyond wheat and corn, and as gluten-free and diverse grain diets became more common. The flavor tends to be slightly nuttier or more earthy, and the pieces are often puffed or flaked to keep them light. This category matters because it expands the idea of what cereal can be, not just in nutrition but in taste and texture. It also reflects global agriculture showing up in everyday breakfast choices, right there on a familiar supermarket shelf. Cereal aisle recap. By the time you reach the end of the shelf, it's clear that cereal isn't one product, it's a whole range, from plain toasted grains to sweet coatings, from loose oats to baked clusters, and from functional fiber bowls to treat-like mix-ins. What matters most is how it fits your morning, how long it stays crunchy, how sweet it tastes, and how filling it feels. This video is general information, not medical or nutrition advice. Nutrition needs vary from person to person, so check the label for ingredients and allergens, and consider your own dietary needs. If you're managing a health condition or making major diet changes, it's best to talk with a qualified healthcare professional.